Întrebați, desigur, cine este invitatul ediției de astăzi la punctul de plecare. Dacă vă spun numele John Moldovan, veți avea toate motivele să bănuiți că rădăcinile sale sunt în România. Așa este. Am avut binecuvântarea să lucrez mulți ani împreună cu bunicul său și cu unchiul său. De curând, John Moldovan a sosit în biserica din care fac parte ca pastor asistent și este foarte apreciat și îndrăgit pentru predicarea sa dinamică și solidă și pentru sprijinul robust pe care îl dă școlii bisericii. Thank you for coming, dear Pastor John. Welcome to the starting point.
Thank you so much for having me.
It will be certainly an enjoying experience to talk together. We see each other in church, but we don't have the other time to go deeper in our lives. So, as your family name is quite obvious, your roots are in Romania. Tell us a little bit about your Romanian roots.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, my name is Moldovan, and my parents came here during communism. My mother did, at least. She was able to come out with her family, and they started in New Jersey and then ended up in California. My father was able to come right, I think, after communism fell, so there's a little bit of period there. But yes, my family is from Romania. My grandfather was a pastor in Romania during communism.
Yes, Pastor Ioan Moldovan.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you know about him?
Oh, I would always hear stories growing up, because sadly he passed away when...
So you were not able to meet him at all?
No, sadly, no. I was born, and then a couple months after I was born, he sadly passed. And we were in America, obviously. I was born in Loma Linda. But I always grow up hearing stories about him and just how he was a patient man, cared about the people.
Very loving, very warm. His voice was very special.
I'm so happy to hear that. And exactly that. Those are the stories I would hear. And my parents would always just be telling me, you know, act like your grandfather. So he kind of became like this legend for me and a role model besides my own father and mother to look up to and to think, wow, this is someone who took Christianity seriously and really cared about people, and I really appreciated that.
Yes, a lot. Yeah. He was always speaking like he was pleading with people, or, you know, his pastor persona was always flowing out. We worked together in the union board for 5 years. Yeah. Then you also have an uncle.
Yes.
I mean, the husband of your aunt. He's a pastor, now retired. Pastor Șase. I worked with him in different ways for many years, and I deeply appreciate him. I suppose you met him.
Yes, absolutely. I still remember going to Romania when I was really little, and once I was older again, my dad and I went for a summer in my 8th grade to 9th grade year of middle school into high school. And yeah, I remember seeing him and talking with him, and I still remember when I first got there, he got us from one of my other uncles, picked us up from the Bucharest airport and was driving us halfway to Târgu, and then he picked us up, and I remember we stopped at the gas station, and he went in and he got one of those 7 days croissants filled with the chocolate, and he came over to me, and he was so happy to give it to me, and those were so good. But yeah, I always remember good things about him and communicate with him here and there through WhatsApp now, but love my uncle.
Yeah. I appreciate him. He is in his work, he is always dependable, very thorough, has a sense of right and wrong. He is quite frank, I mean kind, but open. Yeah. You can count on his judgment at any time. You can count on his judgment at any time. I appreciate him very much. So what else would you like to share with us about your childhood? Where did you grow up, especially about early memories of church, Bible, prayer, things like that.
Absolutely, yes. So I was born in Loma Linda, California, in the hospital. So that was exciting. I don't remember it because when I was 2, my parents moved to Ohio. We had some other cousins. My mom's, I believe her first or second cousin. First cousin, because then those children are my second cousin, so first cousin. And Ohio was good. Growing up there, we had Spring Valley Academy, which was a day academy. I would go to that through kindergarten all the way through high school.
Oh, in the same school?
Same school.
Fantastic.
Yes. So I got
in our times, it's quite unusual to be so settled.
Yeah, being here in Atlanta North, we have, the elementary until the middle school, and then people leave for middle school to, high school. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because that wasn't my experience.
Was it good for you? An Adventist school was good for you, a good experience?
Absolutely. I really thank being in that environment. I praise God because I was surrounded with like-minded people, and younger years are very formidable years. You need to be around people that can help you with difficult questions, and I praise God also having my family and many different resources, books, Adventist literature that I could turn to, but being in the Adventist school system was very, very beneficial indeed.
Do you have a special memory on one of the teachers or who took a special interest in you and maybe invested more in you, or someone who was kind of a mentor to you?
I don't think I'll be able to answer just that one, but all of the teachers when I was there, I remember one, I believe it was my second grade teacher, Mrs. Casson, and she was just such a nice lady. And when also my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. O, when we got older, you could always think back on how loving they were and just being there for you. Progressing into middle school and high school, my different PE teachers, my sports teachers, they were just always a good influence. I remember having conversations with them about spiritual topics, and they were always open and had good answers, and I appreciated that.
It was a large school, or medium, or smaller, compared, let's say, to our school at North Atlanta?
I would say the same size, but adding on the high school became a little bigger. So, well, actually, no, bigger than Atlanta North. Quite bigger now that I think about it, my memory.
But classes were not very large classes.
Classes ranged between 25 to 32. I think my class was 32. Now they have expanded a lot. And I think it used to be like a 200 to 250 person school when I was there, but now it's grown to 400 or 500. Yeah. Our ministerial director for the upper region of Georgia Cumberland, Rick Grieve, his son Joel Grieve is actually now the chaplain at Spring Valley Academy. So, yeah.
Adventist school paradise on earth?
Yes.
Are they?
I think it's a good environment. Paradise on earth, we'll have to wait till heaven to know. But I enjoyed it.
So did you also have some difficult moments, some challenges, sometimes a feeling that you're not treated fair, or some struggles?
Sure, absolutely. Growing up in America, you really start to realize that it's such a melting pot of different cultural ideas, but also different ways of how we do Adventism. We know that these labels are so divisive and conservative, liberal. So, it was just a struggle for me growing up sometimes to understand deeper questions like, how can I honor the Sabbath? What should I be using my time on? Different entertainment choices, things like this, habits of health and eating. So just things like that. But it was good because it was a school that wasn't, I'll say it wasn't paradise on earth. It was a good school, but it provided those opportunities for a little bit of pushback in order to grow. So you'd be able to understand how God wants you to move and to depend upon Him. And it provided a good, safe environment.
Did you ever felt like, resenting or even rebellious with rules they had?
Yeah.
Am I asking too much?
No, I was a kid who just really didn't, and still am, I don't understand ceremony as much sometimes, or like trying to do the rules. They switched to a specific dress code where we had to wear a collared T-shirt with the school logo on it. Before that, all they required was just wear, decent sized pants, whatever it is, no holes, and just pick any shirt, polo shirt that you want. No designs, just straight colors or stripes or patterns. But then they switched to the logo shirt, and
It was a little bit.
I was a little rebellious. If it wasn't for my aunt, she was working in home and school, and she bought me 2 of them, and she's like, okay, here, I know you don't like this, and you haven't bought yet any, and school starts in a week. You probably need some. I'm like, okay. So
What was your age at that time? Do you remember?
it would be easier not to tell you. I think I was older. I think I was in high school, freshman, sophomore, junior.
Well, that's the time when our personality shines up,
Yes.
bursts up.
Yeah.
Finally, did you comply? You had to.
I had to. So yes, I did.
Coming here, did you? Well, your first proposal to our school was to impose a dress code.
The funny thing is I come to the school, and the first thing I mentioned was I saw Kaz, our staff for the campus, and he's wearing a school T-shirt with the logo, and I'm like, I want one. So maybe now I've changed.
Now, about the same time when in the high school, when you were a little struggling with rules and codes and things like that, have you ever, really struggled with the notion of God, or with a distinctive role for the Adventist church or other things? Did you have such, I ask that because many, probably most of us have a time of hard questions. Or what about you?
That's a very good question. I praise God. I never found that I was rebellious against God.
I see.
I always loved His Word. I remember being super young and just running to my dad saying, hey, Dad, there's one specific, I'll mention it, so viewers, don't judge me for this. I was young. I went, Dad, I think there could have been a 13th apostle. My dad's like, what? And I still remember he was doing something. I think he was painting one of our walls or fixing something in the house. And he's like, well, what do you mean, son? I'm like, well, the rich young ruler, Jesus said, come and follow me. And I'm like, see, this is the same pattern. And we sat down, we talked about it for a little bit. But my parents loved me very much, me and my sister, and they provided resources. Like we had the Nest Family Entertainment, those Bible stories that were animated. And after church, the tradition in our household is we'd go to the physical church and enjoy that service, and then we'd come home and we'd turn on probably Doug Batchelor's live stream because it was 3 hours behind us where we lived in Ohio, watch that, and then the rest of the Sabbath we'd either go on a nature hike, spend time with some friends if we met them at the nature park, but also filling our time watching those Bible stories. It was so good to just saturate our young minds with the stories of the Bible. So much so that when I got to school, many people would look at me and they thought I was really good at Bible trivia. All it was my parents loved me and provided those resources to learn about the stories. And that's not to say that parents who don't do that don't love their kids, but I think it's very important, and we should definitely give thought to that, especially now that I get older and I'm a pastor with a school. I'm thinking about these things more, and it really makes sense, especially older people as well. We have so many distractions. We need, I'm preaching now. we need to keep our mind focused and to recite those stories and not take out your phone and scroll, mind droning stuff you can do, but the Word of God, thy Word have I hid in my heart, and I stored it up so I don't sin against you.
Yeah. with quite a number of children in our Adventist, community. One serious problem is that we tend to put more emphasis on the rules, and we think that if we obey the rules, the true spirit of love and trusting Jesus and comes naturally. But apparently this is not so, and there is a tension between rules and Christ-centered, grace-based, faith-centered. Do you feel in your experience you had this tension between the obedience, orientation, and the trusting orientation in your own growing years?
Yeah, that's a very good question too. Like I said, I wasn't really rebellious, but I did have those questions. I did, try to work through them. One great resource that really helped me were two books. Well, two great resources. Steps to Christ was phenomenal. That book, I love reading it.
Do you remember when was the first time you realized, maybe you heard about it, maybe you read something or it was read to you, but do you have an idea how early in your life you became aware that this is such a profound and mind-opening or eye-opening book? When did it happen?
Yeah, middle school. It happened in middle school, and I think the reason it happened in middle school, kids are starting 5th grade onwards, 6th, 7th, 8th. They're hitting more puberty, maturity in that regard. So they're really their brain is starting to open up to more of the adult world, to the working world, to not just fun and play. Ellen White says it very, very clearly. Until they're 7 years old, let them play and let them imagine. But then you start to hit a time where you start to realize that the world can be a dark place and does have sin and not everything's perfect. And it was probably at that age where I'm starting to wrestle with these type of questions, and I start reading more of Steps to Christ, but also Morris Venden's 95 Theses on righteousness by faith.
They are almost forgotten now.
Yeah, they are, but those are good books. And Morris Venden, back to your question of rules, but then also love and grace. I really appreciated his approach as a middle schooler reading those passages from his book. Those who love much, or who are forgiven much will love much. And this idea of it's not cheap grace, but once you understand grace and realize that you're forgiven and that He loves you, God loves you very much, it opens your heart up to love. And so, yeah, I think that really helped me. And as a young person struggling with the question of rules, tradition, those types of things versus, how can you understand or figure out how you are supposed to be defined as a person, and the maturity aspect of it, realizing that God was just loving me no matter what I did, accepting of me. And as I became older, I started to realize that as I began to make my own mistakes. And I realized that I wasn't perfect, and the world wasn't just fairy tales and games. And yeah, that's when it started to become really real. And if we just, we just need to waken up to understanding what love is.
Did you have some favorite classes?
I did. I loved my Bible classes, and I wish I could say this looking back, because now I love history. But it wasn't until high school that I started having a history class through one of my teachers, Miss Galloway, and she was able to put on the class just like a story. It was so cool, and that really awakened in me first, then my love for history. So Bible and history class, yeah.
When did you make a decision to follow Christ and to be baptized?
It's a good question. It was just always there that I'm a Christian, and being brought up in a very stable Christian household, that this is definitely the way to go. And that, I think, is why it is important to have rules and a structure to provide. I guess where we might fail is that we stop being patient and loving. Sometimes as kids break those rules, and we need to be there letting them know, hey, this is a safety net. The church is a place where you can understand why this structure, why these rules of needing to do these things is important. And once you get there, you realize it's about I want to, not I have to. But it was in middle school when I started to read those books that really helped me. And once I got to college, it became my own religion, especially because now I'm out of the house, and I decide to go to church. I would want to go to church with my parents, but now I'm taking the active initiative to go turn on the key in the car and drive to church. So in college.
What were your ideas about choosing a career? What you were going to do in life?
That's funny. So senior year of high school, we have our graduation, and one of the kindergarten teachers, Mrs. O, put on a video and said, for all the kids, I think there were 7 of us who went from all kindergarten until 12th grade, all in one school. And she's like, oh yeah, little Jimmy wanted to be a firefighter, and in kindergarten he would play with the fire trucks, and Susan, she would want to be, a nurse, and little John, oh, he was always like trying to be the pastor when the kids were playing.
And do you recognize yourself in that?
Yeah, I remember the thought, my parents are in the living room just talking, and I'm pacing around the living room. Actually, no, I think it doesn't matter. My parents were somewhere else, but I was in the living room. And I would be pacing and just flipping open the Bible, and it was a Hungarian Bible. I couldn't read it. I'm just, and the Lord said, and I'm preaching to the stuffed animals or whatever.
That's interesting, yeah. So it was about from the beginning.
I think so. When I got to high school, I tell you what, I had some friends in high school, and they were thinking about going to Walla Walla for engineering. And I was thinking as well, maybe computer science, engineering, no, too much math, computer science. And I thought about it, but then talking with so many different people, the matriarch of the church, the youth pastor, different members, and my own parents, and everyone just seemed to kind of encourage me, saying, it seemed like you wanted to be a pastor, and you seem to have that spiritual gift. And so I was affirmed by countless people, just lovingly affirming the decision to stay being a pastor. And that really got me thinking. I would continue to ask people and to go to people who were in the computer science field. Hey, what does it take to be a computer science person? And then talk with people about theology and different things. And Lord really led, in that direction. He really sent people at specific times to me to let me know, we think that you should stay in the ministry. And that was really encouraging.
Do you remember, receiving a strong influence, a good influence, from pastors who pastored your church at any time, any pastor who maybe took a personal interest in you, kind of a mentorship, or do you have any such, mental picture of a pastor who made you think, I'd like to be like this man?
Oh, wow. Yeah, Joel Grieve was a great mentor for me. I really appreciated him. And he would sit with me during those questions, and I would be asking him about different things. And that was a great support. And I really appreciated how Joel was just so open with the kids, open with us, able to make us feel like we were welcome no matter what. He was really a good example of how Christ mingled with people to me, and I appreciated that. Yeah.
So far, I think you mentioned especially one-to-one interactions, listening to your questions, being patient, guiding you through right thinking processes and things like that. Nothing so far about sermons, about preaching. Were you drawn to listening to sermons? Were they helpful to you? Were they able to keep your attention?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
I'll be a little bit arrogant, I guess, or haughty. My parents were blessed with me. I wasn't the kid as a toddler who would make a ruckus in church. You came to church, you sat down, and I just sat down and I listened to the sermon. And so from a young age, I was able to sit and just to listen. I think having my parents as good role models for that, they weren't on their phones during the service, they were listening intently. And so, growing up, I listened to a lot of sermons. Because like I said, we'd come home from church, we'd typically put on Doug Batchelor.
Another series of...
And if we weren't watching those animated Bible stories, then we were also watching other sermons, especially anytime 3ABN had their camp meeting and watching those, and John Loma came and all those different type of people. But I really liked Sean Boonstra, listening to him, David Ashrick, and all these different people. I remember Kenneth Cox, John Carter, yeah. And oh man, now I'm starting to remember it. All the different sermons I listened to. I remember listening to tapes also from HMS Richards. And those were great. I loved listening to those older sermons. I listened to quite a few sermons.
Adventist preaching was quite an influence for you all the time.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
So thinking on becoming a pastor, what aspect of being a pastor was more attractive, more interesting to you? Mainly preaching, or one-to-one interactions, or visiting, or evangelism, or administration, running a church? What was maybe the main function of a pastor in your thinking?
I like it all. I love, maybe not so much the administrative and politics, I'll be honest. But I do love seeing people's spiritual gift and kind of noticing that in them as I build a relationship and trying to lead them into a different ministry or to lovingly tell them and guide them. That is really fun. I love doing that. I love seeing people awaken to the realization of, man, this is cool, this is awesome, ministry is so much fun. I love talking, I'll be honest. Preaching is fun. Because when you pray and you let the Spirit pour into you, and I like preaching, but I'm also scared of it every time.
Are you?
I'm always scared because I have preached some sermons where I didn't do it prayerfully as much as I should have. And I know that I can't preach. I know I can't, but something happens that God helps me, and He helps it form in the notes and having everything succinctly laid out. So that's wonderful. I love studying the Bible. I love church history. I love that side. I love studying the doctrines. Theology is really important. We really don't recognize, but if we had a better view of who God was, it would change our life.
Yes.
And so many people think, I don't need theology, that's for theologians. No, we all need theology. Many of us can't get PhDs. I can't get a PhD. I'd love to, but that's not my calling. I have friends who are doing that, and that's good for them. But all of us can share in understanding the divine attributes better and understanding how loving God is and how great He is. And it really wakens something up in you. So, the administrative side of helping people recognize their spiritual gifts, I love that. I love the theology. I love the church history, the doctrines. I also just love visitation. Like at college, I enjoyed college so much because you're living in a dormitory. So I'd get up from my room, go to a friend's room, just chat with them for 5 minutes, catch up, tell them a story about my day, listen to a story from them, and then continue on, visit another friend. I also love more in-depth things, much like you're doing in this interview. I had a project where I had to interview someone in college, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed getting to know someone's story and hearing what they're doing. and how they got there in life. So yeah, the visitation part, the talking part, the Bible study part, it's all fun.
So where did you study?
Southern Adventist University.
Why, it was your choice? It was more convenient? Why did you come here? There are a few options, not very many, but quite a few.
Yes, not to be biased, I think it has the best undergraduate theology program. The professors there were great. I heard many good things about it. And then going through, it was excellent. All the schools are great, don't get me wrong. But if you're watching this and you're contemplating which one, here's an example. I really enjoyed Southern Adventist University. The team there was great.
So, as I understand, they fulfilled your expectations.
Yes, they did. They did, and they gave you a good foundation, and so I appreciated it. Yes.
Was there any professor who had a special influence on you?
Oh, you're asking a lot of the singulars. I'm terrible with that. People ask, like when I was growing up, who's your best friend? I'm like, I'm friends with everyone. I'm the type of person that just kind of jumps around.
It's all right.
I liked all of my professors. When I first came, I could talk. You know the time. So if you want me to talk about the professors individually, I can. But they were all influential because each of them focus on different spheres. New Testament, exegesis, that was very influential. The church administration, Ellen White, and all these different type of things. But also the love that they had. One professor, I'll mention this one, like Dr. Bauer, all the professors, but him specifically, because I noticed it not only for myself but for others as well, is he would just really want to be your pastor. One of my friends went through a tough situation, and Dr. Bauer had also gone through a similar tough situation, and he pulled that friend aside and he told me this, and he's like, hey, if you need help or if you need a pastor, I'm here for you. And so that was the quality of education that they had at Southern. They really invested in you, and they want you to email them. I've emailed a couple of them already since being in the field, just asking them questions and catching up, and they reply.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Did you also have opportunity to practice something like preaching or visiting or working in the structure of a local church? Did you have also these opportunities?
Yeah, they do a 2-year, they call it an externship, because you're going out of the university to do that. And I was at Udawa SDA Church with Peter Kulikov. So for 2 years I was under him and did some visitations with him, learned the church structure, and then all those different cool things.
That was during your...
Yeah.
It was not interrupting. No. It was combined.
Combined.
Wonderful. Yeah. So, when you were approaching the graduation, I suppose a mental picture of the pastor you were going to be was already building up, and then in due time you landed in our church, and you began actually working, and now we are about 6 months down the road.
Yeah.
You came at the beginning of the year.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. Six months passed, and at the time of this recording. How would you compare your expectations, your mental picture, with what your work in the church came actually to be? How do they compare? And if there are some differences, how do you try to reconcile them?
Yeah, when I was in college, I knew, just growing up hearing about my grandfather, but then also great influences like Dr. Parker and Dr. Hartman, how loving they were and how relational they were. They really gear you to visit people. Good saying from Dr. Hartman was, if you sit in their couches at their home, they'll come and sit in your pew. So I wanted to do visitations. Coming to Atlanta North, though, at first, I realized for the first couple months I didn't do too much of visitation because it was tough. trying to just assimilate into the church, try to learn what the church is doing. So there was a transitionary period, but also people are commuting to the church, so they live far away. Time, Atlanta North. I mean, just Atlanta, the city is busy. City life, go, 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 the American lifestyle. It can be tough to visit with people, but I've been realizing that I just need to contact people, schedule something, go visit them, call them. I need to do that more. So as of recently, I've kind of been getting back into my idea from college, which is visiting people a lot. Because if you don't know them, how do you know what to preach about? I mean, prayer and all that, of course, but once you mingle with people, visit with them, you hear their needs, and you understand the issues in the church. I think visitation, administrative things. I wasn't expecting how many administrative things. One of my friends was telling me, it's like, hey, I'm getting a minor in business, you should too. And I'm like, why? Oh, because don't you know, like pastors, like being a CEO of a church, and a little bit of that, yeah. Maybe I should have taken some more business classes.
Well, a few weeks ago, actually you came with your wife to our place, our family, and my in-laws, and we spent a few hours on a Sabbath afternoon in the back garden of our house, and that was very special. Thank you for coming, and you wanted to know us. You also gave us some opportunity to know you, to better know you. And being Romanian, being a retired pastor, that resonated very well with my ideas and my traditions, I could say, of being a pastor, where much of the life of a pastor was spent with families of the members, visiting. Of course, life here is quite different. Pastors are expected to visit someone when he or she is in the hospital or something unusual happens. But other than that, I think people tend to be more individualistic, and they are very busy. In our church, there are lots of professionals with very, very hectic agendas, and but I appreciate it very much, and I'm glad to see that it was not just, trying to accommodate with our Romanian expectations, but it's also part of your vision of what a pastor is expected to do. So you said already that you like preaching and you like speaking in general. It's quite remarkable because you just began preaching. I don't know how many sermons have you presented before coming to our church? A few, probably.
Yeah, I did a 19 evangelistic series, so that was a lot of fun. But maybe a couple, never really a lot in a church setting.
Yeah, but you really mastered the art and of preaching, and you seem to be in your place when you are in the pulpit, and you have a way to catch the attention, but not just with the superficial. Maybe in the beginning you startle us with something, but then you go deeper into the spiritual truths of the Bible. How do you prepare for the sermon? How do you choose the topic? How do you choose the starting point?
Well, I appreciate those kind words. Thank you so much. Praise God. It's a process. Much prayer. We need more prayer. Not just pastors, everyone, but because the question is on sermons. I have quickly realized, and this was something that they taught me in college, that you have all your commentaries, you have all your dictionaries, you have all these theological stuff, but don't start there. Start with the verse. Let it impact your own life first. Let it really speak to you, and then once the Holy Spirit with prayer, you have gotten that idea, then go to the commentaries, then go to the Greek and the Hebrew and do some more study, understand what the context is and the different good hermeneutical approaches. And so that's really what I want to do. Not always does it happen. Sometimes I get excited and I want to read what the commentary says because the verse is a little tricky or something like that. But really analyzing the verses for me, because every sermon that I preach, and I love this from college again, because not to my credit, it's really what they taught me. If the sermon doesn't preach to you, you can't preach it.
Sure.
It really has to affect you, or not that you can't preach it, but that's where you get more passion. That's where you get more power. And that's where you get something that actually applies to other people because you've chewed it up and you understand it. And so really starting with that little seed. And then from there, it's funny because I'll write some outlines after I get some more information, do some more research, and I'll have my bullet, my subject, my complements, those technical terms, and then I'll write an outline, and then I'll try and practice it.
You do? You
yes,
practice it?
I practice it.
Loud voice? I mean...
Loud voice, speaking, I'm imagining myself up on stage, and I'm preaching it. And I'm picturing people as I'm practicing, too. I'm picturing specific people, my own heart especially. And if it's not flowing, most of the time it never flows. I don't think that I can write a manuscript sermon. Many people can. I can't do that. I have to speak first, and then I start typing. And then I'll write an outline, doesn't work, so I'll make another outline. And then I'll start preaching. And so that's typically how I do it. And that also helps internalize it for me, so that on the day of the sermon I can have very minimal notes, just kind of a thought.
Yeah, I was impressed with that because you don't seem to depend at all on your notes. I mean, you are very free, but you know where you are going to go, and you are very steady in moving on. And you don't read your sermon; it flows out of you, and we are blessed with your preaching.
Oh,
praise God
for
that. Yeah. You are also very much involved with the school. So the fact that you have also been all your life in Adventist schools, I think, brings some insights to you. Yeah. In what ways are you actually helping the school?
That's a good question. It's a little tough right now because of summer
yes.
has come, but I was involved especially with their chapels. That was the biggest thing. So I would write the chapel talks for them. There were a couple times, one time specifically, where the 8th graders went on a spiritual retreat. We climbed up Stone Mountain, which is a very small mountain compared to those in Romania. Not a hill, really. And it was just a good day. As the kids were walking, the 8th grade teacher really put it together, but she asked me to come and support her. But as the kids were walking, she had me answer spiritual questions that the kids had along the hike up. And that was really fun, just really interacting in more difficult questions and dialogues like, who is God? Did someone create God? And at the top of the mountain, we had this little symbolic act where everyone, while they were climbing up the mountain, they either had to wear a bandage on their leg so they couldn't use that leg, bandage their eyes so they couldn't see, but they had a friend who was helping them up not to trip. The parents out there are horrified.
Very interesting.
And at the top, we had this little devotional, and then what the kids did is they would take their bandages off and they put it on me.
Oh.
And I was symbolizing Christ and how Christ took on our infirmities. And I was wearing all the bandages. I looked like a mess. And I, died or symbolically or just, I'm forgetting the word, just figuratively, just so that they could see it, some representation. And that was really powerful for them. I really appreciated that. But other different fun things with the kids, like we had a Bible Jeopardy night where we had 2 teams and they tried to answer the Bible trivia, and at the end, had a lesson about, okay, you see how important it is to know the Bible stories and whatnot, but different activities like that, playing music with the kids. I want to do more of that even as well, but going to play with them at recess, So one of the best things you can do. I did that a lot, just hanging out with them, letting them know that I'm their friend, because those moments come where they need someone to depend on. And if we're only just going to them and trying to teach them a lesson, when they hit that breaking point and something happens in their life, they're going to turn to those who are close and who they feel safe with. And so really just playing with them and helping them know that you're a safe person, that's one of the most important things. Yeah. But also going to Pathfinders and many other things. Got my brain spinning now. I can't wait for them to come back.
Yeah, you feel that.
Yes.
You miss them.
I do miss them. It's nice. It's quiet at the church because it's just, the pastor and myself and Calea, and the school was across the way, and you could always get up from your church office and go over there and talk to them. It was a good break from needing to do more administrative things or study.
Can you imagine yourself, let's say, if the Lord doesn't come sooner, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what do you think?
Oh, I'll do whatever God wants me to, but if I had a say in it, I just want to pastor. I really enjoy being there with the people. I really enjoy just getting to know them. So I just see myself being a pastor. I hope to grow along the way, to learn new things, to grow in my own spiritual life, and just to minister to people. Yeah.
In our church, we have quite an ethnical and racial diversity. Do you find easy for you to relate to different cultures, different traditions?
Yes, I remember when I was introduced to the board. You were there, and I think it was you actually who asked the question, what do you appreciate about Atlanta North Church? And I mentioned the racial diversity. I love that. The cultures, the ethnicities. I think it's a blessing because there are many different people, and how to have that unification in that regard in the church, it really speaks volumes. I appreciate it. It doesn't, I love cultures. I love learning about different cultures. I love history, so that kind of lends into that as well. So I'm not put off by different cultural habits. Actually, rather I'm curious about them. I want to learn and ask them more about it.
So far, have you been in a tough situation, a situation which made you struggle, or you don't have to mention that, but usually about the beginning of working as in a church, there comes a time when you hit the wall. I mean, something unexpected, and you feel you are not probably very well prepared for that, and it's a challenge, and it could be a growing experience. Have you been through anything like that so far, or you have been spared?
Sadly, I have not been spared because I'm human and I make mistakes. I'll be vulnerable. I won't go into details, but you learn things in college. You learn things from books about how to communicate with people if there's conflict, how to resolve it. I probably, could remember that I need practical knowledge as well. I need the experience of that, because you have an idea in your brain, but then it sometimes just goes out the window if you don't have that backed up by experience. And so, a lesson for me really has been, don't think that just because you know it, that's what you're going to do when push comes to shove. You really need to pray and ask God to help you remember when tougher situations come around. That was really vague, so let me try and make it just one more sentence really clear, which I have to think about this because put me in the hot seat. You learn things, and you think you know what to do when a situation comes up, but then it amazes you what you end up doing, how different it is from what you learned. And you look back on the situation as like, why did I do that? That's what I mean. So yes, yeah, we definitely need to be humble. I think that's a very important lesson every single day, even if you feel okay. Even if you wake up and you don't think there's any conflict, or there's no conflict at all. No wall hitting, no disastrous thing that you went into, no, just every single day we need to surrender before God and recognize that. It's very important.
Hopefully, among our viewers, there will be some young people at the time when they are thinking what to do with their lives, and hopefully some of them will like you and love you and say, I'd like to be like him. What would be your advice to them, to those who may consider becoming a pastor? Let me add something. In the times of your grandfather or your uncle, becoming a pastor was something to dream about. Few were able to do that, but it was very respected. It was a very desirable place to be or work to do. Probably we are no longer there. Pastors, I don't complain, but probably there are other more interesting or glamorous things to do. What would you advise a young person to do when they want to clarify their decisions on life?
What you say is very true, because we look at the theology schools, we look at Southern, Andrews, Walla Walla, other schools. We have a drop in theology students. There aren't as many people going through as there was 10 years ago.
Even 10 years ago.
Yeah. And so if someone's considering it, like myself, I was struggling. Computer science makes money. Pastoring, no money. Really, prayer. Society does a number for young people today, especially because every young person is trying to figure out who they are. They're trying to figure out how to define themselves. We go to many different things to figure that out. Social media is a terrible one, where we try to figure out who we're supposed to be. What type of clothes am I supposed to wear? And we define ourselves more about what we have, what we do, but really the Bible teaches us that God defines us. And He is the one who just is. And so really taking time instead of Googling, why should I be a pastor? Googling, how much money does a computer science major make? Googling this and that. We Google everything. Google is not a brain. God has given us a very, very powerful instrument up here, and I believe we need to use that. And so young people, if you're considering pastoring or whatever job, but specifically pastoring, the ministry, really consider that, or really think. Sit down and pray. Let God lead you, because there's something that I love to do in my prayers is I tell God, I could ask you do this and do that, but you know exactly how to reach me. You know me better than myself. You know what to do in order for my brain to click and know this is the direction God is leading me. That door has closed, this door has opened. So really spend time praying in that way. God, I trust that you know how to let me know. And so do that, and really let God lead in that regard.
Thank you so much. You really became vulnerable, and you shared very thoughtful expressions of your thinking and experience with God. And I want to tell you that God has even higher goals for you, and His resources are inexhaustible. And your life will fulfill dreams beyond you can have now, according to His bounties of grace and love. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Fiecare generație nouă de pastori este binecuvântată de Dumnezeu cu talente speciale, scoase la lumină printr-o instruire de nivel ridicat. Dar caracterul este de cea mai mare însemnătate, mai mult decât talentul, iar trăsătura de caracter care îngăduie cel mai bine lui Dumnezeu să lucreze în noi și prin noi este umilința. M-aș bucura să avem din nou ocazia să îl avem în emisiune pe John Moldovan și să ne bucurăm să vedem creșterea sa. Eu vă aștept la următoarea ediție.